Hi students, welcome back to today's class. I hope you are fine. In the previous video we studied about the figures of speech. We studied the different types of figures of speech, where they are used and what is the purpose of it. Today we are going to continue the same thing, the same topic, the figures of speech. But in this video we are going to study about some new figures of speech. Today we are going to study about oxymoron, irony and imagery. Okay? Oxymoron. What do you mean by oxymoron? It's a figure of speech in which incongruous or contradictory terms appear side by side. It means that opposite ideas are linked together. So, for example, you can look there below: cold fire, honest thief, darkly lit, fearful joy. You can see how the words are. Those words are all opposite to each other, and though when we combine them, we call it as the oxymoron. We have some more examples. Look at the picture over here. Working vacation. On vacation we don't work. So it's an opposite ideas. So working vacation is an oxymoron. Fresh cafeteria food. We know in cafeteria we cannot find fresh food. See? So here also the same thing. It's an oxymoron. Jumbo shrimp. So these are some of the oxymorons examples. Now let's move on to the next topic. That is irony. What do you mean by irony? It's an expression of something which is contrary to the intended meaning. The words say one thing but mean another. Means it's like a sarcasm. We want to say something but we are saying it in a different way. Like suppose it's raining, and then what a beautiful day, Maxine said, opening her umbrella. So it's like a sarcasm when we are saying it. We meant something else, but we are telling it in some other words. That we call it as the irony. Here we have some more examples of irony. Look at the picture. Aren't you an ugly fellow, said to an extremely good-looking man. A police station which ends up getting broken into. A gardener who cannot grow his own garden plants. A Facebook post which is complaining about how terrible Facebook is. You can see over here how the writer has expressed his ideas in some other way. These are the examples of irony. Irony is of three types. Today we are going to study the different types of irony: verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. Verbal irony. When a character says something but means something else. As I told you earlier, sarcasm is one form of verbal irony. Okay, look at the example. I can't wait to read the 700-page report. So this is one form of the verbal irony. Here are some examples of verbal irony. It's as clear as mud. That's about as funny as a toothache. I'm not angry at all, she exclaimed as the smoke poured from her ears. So these are nothing but examples of verbal irony. Means the character is trying to say something else but means something different. Now let's move on to the next type of irony, that is situational irony. In this situational irony, you expect something to happen but the opposite occurs. That means whatever you are thinking would happen next, but in the end something else happens. For example, it would be ironic for the police station to be robbed. That is impossible for anyone to rob a police station. So it's kind of situational irony. So we can say the situational irony is in that the events are opposite of what's expected. It's not the same. The viewer or the reader feels that something is going to happen, but something else happens unexpectedly. So that we call it as the situational irony. Dramatic irony. This is the third form of irony. Here the audience, that means we know something, but the character in the story does not know. For example, Tim's parents are proud of the A he got in the test. But we know that he cheated. But the parents, they have no idea about it. This form of irony is mostly used in horror stories or suspense thriller stories, where the writer tries to create a suspense. Only the reader knows what is that something is going to happen over there, but the character in the story is unaware about it. So that we call it as the dramatic irony. See the example for dramatic irony. Someone has broken the window. We know the audience knows who has done it, but the character in the story, he doesn't know. So, what is dramatic irony? In this, the audience knows something, but the character doesn't know. I hope you understood what is irony and the three different types of irony. Now, let's move on to the last topic of this video, that is imagery. What do you mean by imagery? Imagery is the author's use of language that appeals to the five senses in order to help the reader imagine exactly what is being described. So here the writer uses the senses over here. He can use five senses or three or two as he wish. You know what are the senses? Sight, smell, taste, touch, and hear. So the writer uses these senses to create his story. Let's see how we can use these five senses in our writing. For example, sight. The tiny red ant climbed up the broken twig. So when we are describing it, we know that we are using the sight sense. The sweet smell of the freshly baked apple filled the air. So the smell over here, we use the sense of smell. One bite of sour lemon caused my lips to pucker. This is, we know which sense, that is taste. For sound, let's see what it is. The car squeaked every time I hit a bump in the road. The sharp edge of the paper cut my finger and made it sting. That is, here, the touch sense. See, in each form of the writing, how the writer has uses the senses. So, these sense, when we use in our writing, it creates our writing more interesting for the reader to read. So now I hope you understood what is imagery. It is nothing but the language that appeals to a reader's sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, or touch. It helps the reader to visualize. He can imagine how the whatever the scene is about that story. Look at the example over here, how the writer has used the different senses over here. The lake was icy blue. The only sound that could be heard was the chirping of distant birds. The air was cool and crisp on my skin, and I could see my breath in the morning air. See, in this just such a short extract, how the writer has used the different senses. In the first line, we can see that he has used the sight sense. And in the next one, the second sentence, he has used the hearing. And the next one, the air was cool and crisp on my skin, that is the touch. And I could see my breath, again it is the sight. So not necessary that you have to use all the five senses when you're writing it. You can use 2, 3 or any amount, means all the five also you can use and write it down. But you can see how interesting it makes your story. So that's why usually the authors, the writers, they use these imagery to make their stories more interesting.
Oxymoron. An expression that contains words with opposite meanings. The oxymoron, pretty ugly, implies that a person can be both attractive and unattractive at the same time. Since shrimp are never actually large, the oxymoron jumbo shrimp is pretty obvious. Putting two contrasting terms together is the easiest way to make an oxymoron. Everyone knows the concept of a civil war is an oxymoron because wars are never civil. Oxymoron, an expression that contains words with opposite meanings.
Hi, you're here today because you know exactly what irony is, right? It is defined as the difference between what appears to be true and what really is true, or appearance versus reality. It has a lot to do with expectations on the part of the reader or on the part of a character. So there are 3 different types of irony, and we're going to be talking about each one: verbal, situational, and dramatic. Verbal irony occurs when someone says the opposite of what he or she means. Like this boy on his phone who's talking about the movie that he enjoyed so much. Indicated through tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, or actions, verbal irony, in its most bitter and destructive form, becomes sarcasm. Situational irony is when the situation differs from what common sense expects it to be, like the fire hall full of firemen that burns to the ground. It is used by writers to express hypocrisy or injustice. Dramatic irony is the difference between what the character thinks to be true and what the reader or audience knows to be true. For instance, Romeo, who believes that Juliet is dead, but we, the audience, know that she's only taken a sleeping potion and will soon wake up. Something that is ironic is unexpected. If it's sarcasm, it's verbal irony. If it's unexpected by everybody, including the audience, it's situational irony. And if it's unexpected by just the character, then it's dramatic irony. Thanks for watching.
What is imagery? Imagery is defined as descriptive language that appeals to the five senses. Sight, touch, sound, taste, and smell. Now class, let's try some examples. The silence was broken by the screech of tires and the scraping metal. Which type of imagery was used? Sound. When I bit into the lemon, its citrus flavor shocked my tongue. Which type of imagery was used here? Taste. He whiffed the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Which sense did this sentence appeal to? Smell. She gently stroked the cat's silky fur. Which type of imagery was used? Touch. And last but not least, sight. A host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Congratulations! Now you can use imagery in your writing too.
I hope you have understood the figures of speech what we have learned today, and please revise it, and if you have any doubts, ask me. Thank you.